There are things one should never tell, not because they aren't true, but because no one would believe them. But after so many years working as a night watchman, I've learned that silence also fills with echoes, and some never go away. My name is Elias Rivas, and I've been working nights for over 20 years, guarding all kinds of facilities, warehouses, factories, schools. I got used to the cold, the creaking of metals, the shadows that move on their own when the wind blows. But there was one place that changed me, one I never should have said yes to. It was an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. The building was huge, with high ceilings and dust-covered windows. They used to make heavy machinery parts there, but it had been closed for years. A union contact offered me the job, a quiet shift, Elias, just to watch for vandals or animals. They pay well because you have to cover the full night. I accepted. Who wouldn't? The first night was calm. They gave me the keys, a flashlight, and explained I had to patrol every 2 hours. No cameras, no internet, just an old portable radio for alerts. The guard booth was in a metal cubicle right at the entrance with a view of the main gate. I walked the perimeter. The inner walls were covered in old graffiti. The echo of my footsteps bounced off the ceiling like someone was following me. But I told myself it was just getting used to it. The weirdness started on the second night. Around 3 a.m., I heard something that wasn't the wind, a sharp thud. Heavy, like something had been thrown to the ground. I jumped up, grabbed the flashlight, and went out. I thought maybe someone had broken in. I searched the hallways until I reached the assembly area where the biggest machines were, covered in torn tarps. Nothing seemed out of place at first, but then I noticed one of the tarps on the floor. I lifted it carefully, expecting rats or a cat. But there was nothing, just a small puddle of water, even though that area was completely roofed. The water formed a perfect circle, like someone had been standing there, dripping. I headed back to the cubicle with an unease that's hard to explain. I sat in front of the radio, played some instrumental music to relax, and tried to think it was normal. The building was old, damp, and I wasn't 20 anymore to not get spooked. But just as I was closing my eyes for a moment, the radio turned off by itself. I thought the battery died, but when I touched it, I felt a faint hum, like it was still on. Instead of music, a very low sound started, like someone breathing close to the microphone. It didn't last more than a few seconds, then stopped. I looked out the cubicle window, all dark, all still, until I saw a silhouette pass by the side hallway. I jumped up, grabbed the flashlight, went out, and circled where the figure had crossed, but found no one, no noise, no trace. I returned to the cubicle, locked the door, sat down. The radio turned on again, and this time a voice said with icy clarity, "You shouldn't have come back." That's when I knew something was wrong with that place, but the worst was yet to come. I sat there for minutes without moving, eyes glued to the radio. That voice wasn't like a normal transmission. It sounded like someone had said it right behind me, but from inside the device. It had that low, worn tone, like someone who doesn't speak often, like the words cost them effort. I tried to convince myself it was interference. Old factories sometimes pick up weird frequencies. I'd read that somewhere, but no matter how I turned the dial, I got no signal, just static. And then I noticed something more unsettling. The cubicle's digital clock was wrong. It read 12:08, but I knew it was past 1:30. I checked my wristwatch, and phone all matched, except the cubicle's. Time in there seemed to run on its own. I went on my round again, not because I wanted to, but because I felt that if I stayed still, something could get close. Sometimes moving is the only thing that keeps things away. I reached the back of the building where the old lockers were. I'd never gone in, but that night, the door was ajar for some reason. Inside, the smell was different, not just damp and dust. There was something else, like the air was stagnant, loaded with the scent of metal and wet wood. The benches were covered in dry leaves, though there were no windows, and right in the middle, on one bench, hung a jacket exactly like mine. even with the embroidered name eerie. I froze. I hadn't left it there. I'd never entered that room. I approached slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand, and when I touched it, the fabric was warm, like someone had been wearing it until recently. I turned to leave, and then I heard a whisper right behind me. "Don't close the door." Spun around, no one. But the door closed on its own, slowly, without hurry, without wind, just closing. I ran, pushed with all my strength. It gave way with a creak, like it hadn't been opened in years. I returned to the main hallway, breathing hard. I didn't look back. Back in the cubicle, I found something that left me speechless. An open notebook on the table, one that wasn't there before. On the first page, in black, crooked handwriting, "Night shift log." I flipped through notes, one after another, shift after shift, detailed descriptions of noises, hallways, the radio, whispers, voices, even the locker room, the jacket, and the clock that didn't keep real time. But what paralyzed me was reading this at the end of the last page: Elias Rivas, shift 31, still inside. The handwriting was mine, exactly mine. I slammed the notebook shut. I didn't know if I was dreaming, if it was some trick, if I'd inhaled something weird, but one thing was sure: I hadn't written that, or at least I didn't remember. And in that moment, I knew, or rather, felt it, something in that building had been watching me from day one. Something that knew my name, my schedule, waited for my patrols, and had no intention of letting me leave outside. The night was as still as ever, but I no longer saw the same place. It felt like the whole building was breathing. It's like every corner of that abandoned factory had something awake. Something that had only watched before, but was now starting to move. I looked at the notebook again. The last page had a new line I hadn't seen when I closed it, in the same handwriting: "Don't leave this time." I don't know if it was fear or stubbornness, but I tore out the page in rage, ripped it to pieces, and threw it in the trash. The sound of tearing paper was the only thing that broke the silence. Neither the radio, nor the wind, nor the structure's noises responded. And that scared me more than anything. The silence was absolute. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my things, the keys, and decided to leave. The cubicle clock still read 12:08, but my phone said 15 minutes to dawn. I told myself if I reached the main gate, I'd go and never return. But when I left the cubicle, the factory was no longer the same. The hallways had lengthened literally. I noticed it walking the main corridor where the offices were. Now, there were more doors, more hanging pipes, more shadows, like the building had grown while my back was turned. And then I heard footsteps, not mine. They were slow, heavy, coming from one of the hallways that used to lead to the loading area. I turned off my flashlight instinctively and hid behind a column. From there, I saw the figure, tall, thin, walking upright without hurry, like it knew exactly where it was going. It had no visible face, just a kind of hood made from what looked like a watchman's uniform, like mine. My heart pounded in my chest. When it passed near me, the air thickened. I felt a chill from the base of my neck to my toes. For an instant, it seemed to stop, like it could smell me in the dark. But it continued, slowly turning the corner and disappearing into the shadows. I took the chance to run. I didn't look back. I reached the gate, was locked, but the keys still worked. I opened it, crossed, and as soon as I was out, the air changed back to that normal dawn smell. Cigarettes, fog, cold, earth. I turned to look at the building one last time. It was gone. Only a vacant lot remained, with some old foundations sticking out like ribs of something long collapsed. I checked my phone. 6:03 a.m. I stood there with the gate keys still in my hand, shaking. I pocketed them without knowing why. I walked away without looking back, with the feeling that something or someone had let me go just for now. Since that day, having worked as a watchman again, not out of fear, though I won't deny it, but because I feel that every nightfall, the factory might reappear. And if someone else takes that shift, I hope they read the Notebook in time. I never believed in horror stories. I always thought they were just to entertain kids or scare the gullible. I worked as an administrator in a tech company, and my night shifts were part of the routine. The building was empty almost always. Only a few of us stayed to work in the night's calm, when calls dropped and office noise vanished. But to be honest, after that night, everything changed. My view of darkness, solitude, empty hallways was never the same. My name is Miguel, and I worked the night shift because the company needed someone to monitor activities, servers, and keep things running while others rested. It was a quiet job, almost monotonous. But one night, everything I knew about the place crumbled. It was a night like any other. The company was in a multi-story building, deserted. I was alone on the first floor, sitting at my computer. The desk light glowed warmly, but the rest was in darkness. The AC hummed softly, and my keyboard was the only sound breaking the absolute silence. Everything seemed normal until something unforgettable happened. It was 3 a.m. when I decided to do a round as usual. I walked the empty hallways, checking doors were locked, nothing out of place. I glanced at security cameras, all in order. When I reached the last office in the hallway, something strange happened. At first, I didn't notice, but as I approached the door, I felt a slight cold draft that made me shiver. It wasn't natural, it was dense, heavy, like the atmosphere was thicker. I looked through the office window, complete silence, but something unsettled me. The hallway light flickered a couple times, tensing me up. I tried not to overthink and moved on. But what I saw next had no explanation. As I walked the hallway to the end, I heard a faint creak, not loud, but clear in the night's quiet. I looked left to the break room and saw a figure. It wasn't fully visible, but enough for a chill to run down my spine. The figure was in the dark, almost imperceptible, but I could see its outline, thin, tall, and its eyes, those eyes that didn't glow as they should. Somehow, it had caught me in its gaze, though I didn't understand what was looking or what it wanted. I felt the air around me thicken, like the space between me and that shadow stretched, like an invisible pressure forcing me to stay, watching. I couldn't move, couldn't do anything. My mind screamed to run, close my eyes, but I couldn't. It was like an invisible force anchored me to the floor. The creak came again, closer, and I saw it move slowly, almost gliding, like the figure had no physical body, fading and reappearing elsewhere. My brain understood what was happening, but couldn't process it. My body reacted instantly. I returned to my desk and tried to ignore what I'd seen. I just wanted to finish the night and forget. But back in my computer, I saw something that froze my blood. On the monitor, a new log entry I hadn't made. The date was that night's time, 3:11 a.m., almost exactly when I'd seen the figure. The strangest part, the message said, "Miguel, why haven't you seen me?" My throat closed. I looked around, convinced someone was pranking me. How had that message gotten there? No one else was in the building. Everyone had gone home. I approached the screen, fingers trembling, tried to delete it, but the cursor wouldn't move. The screen froze. Then I heard the whisper. Miguel was low, like a distant echo, but from somewhere close, somewhere I couldn't see. I spun toward the door. I was no longer alone. Something was there with me, something I didn't understand, something that didn't want me to leave. The whisper came again, closer. Miguel. My heart pounded like it was trying to escape my chest. I looked around, but no one. The building, as empty as ever, now seemed the most terrifying place I'd known. My mind tried to rationalize, maybe a hallucination or system error, but the chill on my skin, crawling my body, told me I wasn't dreaming. I stood slowly from the chair, trying not to make noise, but every step echoed in the darkness, like the floor wanted to swallow me. I walked to the hallway door. Everything silent, only my footsteps and breathing. At the corner, I couldn't stop looking toward the break room, that corner where I'd seen the shadow. Something drew me there, called me. Though instinct screamed not to, my feet wouldn't stop. Turning the corner, the hallway light flickered a couple times, then faster, until it went out completely, leaving me in darkness. I froze. My eyes tried to adjust to the dim. Suddenly, a small light turned on in the distance, the computer screen in the office desk, like it was inviting me closer. I didn't understand why, but I went, almost hypnotized. Each step felt eternal. My breathing grew ragged. The feeling of being watched intensified. I was sure I wasn't alone. Something was in that room, waiting. When I reached the desk, the screen showed a new line. "You're close now." There was no way anyone else could have written that no one there. I closed my eyes tight, trying to calm my mind, but the whisper returned, much closer. I could feel breath on my neck. "Miguel, why are you ignoring me?" I jumped, eyes open, nothing. No figure, no shadow, just a screen with the message blinking. Something was wrong. My mind couldn't keep up with thoughts, couldn't comprehend. But I felt growing pressure in the air, like everything was about to collapse. A dull noise made me turn. It came from the break room. Not common. Like something or someone dragging feet, slowly but determinedly. My skin prickled. Without thinking, I walked to the door. But when I reached it, the hallway went dark again, the light out, without warning. Total darkness. The creak stopped, but the pressure increased. The sense something was near, watching, made me back up. I felt trapped in an invisible web. I tried the doorknob, wouldn't turn. The whole building seemed stopped, like nothing outside, but the air told me otherwise. I heard a soft whisper, clearly a voice. "Why won't you let me in?" In that moment, the door flew open. Light abruptly returned, illuminating the empty hallway. My mind barely processed. I stood paralyzed, staring at the empty hall, and then the figure appeared, at the end. Tall, thin, face blurry, diffuse, but eyes glowing with intensity, piercing my soul. It didn't move, just watched. "I'm waiting for you," the last I remember. Lights out again, whisper fading, everything silent. When I came to, I wasn't in the building. I was in my car, front of the entrance. I didn't know how I'd gotten there. Didn't remember leaving, but I knew I couldn't stay. Couldn't return to work there when I got home. I checked my phone. Several company texts, all asking, "Miguel, why haven't you come today?" The worst wasn't that. The worst was my logout message, just before leaving. "I won't work nights again." I couldn't help feeling something wasn't right. The words seemed written by someone else, like it wasn't me typing. How did I know I wouldn't return? Because after that experience, couldn't stop feeling something followed me. That night, after my strange escape, I spent the rest of dawn tossing in bed, unable to sleep. Something inside insisted I return, maybe senseless, but the questions, images of that figure, shadow, tormented me. I knew I couldn't rest without answers. The next morning, I decided I'd go back, not to work, but to understand, to face what I'd seen or perceived. Something inside said I had to confront it. The day dragged. Unease persisted. Finally, I grabbed my keys and headed to the office. Approaching, strange pressure weighed on my chest. The building, once just a workplace, now seemed a shadowy giant watching me. The entrance was the same, but crossing the door, air thickened like I was about to suffocate. I walked the hallway like a bad joke. Lights flickered. I approached the desk with the message "No one," but screen on again. New text. "I knew you'd return, but you're not alone." Cold sweat down my back. I'd left no one there, impossible. Or so I thought, until I looked to the back of the room. The figure was there, same position as first sight. Tall, thin, eyes glowing, but now not distant, much closer. Like it crossed the hallway while I was distracted by the screen. my body reacted. I ran for the exit. But something stopped me. An invisible cold hand closed on my wrist. I couldn't move it, like trapped. I looked down, couldn't see the hand, but the pressure was real. Then the voice, clearer. Don't go. The figure moved toward me. Steps silent, but air heavier with each. I couldn't stop staring at its eyes, that empty gaze, lacking humanity. When it was right in front, air froze. Its face had no defined features, just gray mist, expanding and contracting, like made of fog. Then its eyes. Those eyes grew, filling its face with unfathomable darkness. Miguel, you've never left. The words pierced like shot into my mind. My body trembled. I felt about to fade into air, but then a spark of clarity gave strength. I jumped back, freeing my wrist from invisible pressure, and ran for the exit without looking back. Hallway lights flickered once more, but I didn't stop. I knew if I looked back, I wouldn't return. I left the building and first felt something following, dark, persistent. That night, I finally slept, but not in peace. Dreams visited one after another. Same shadow, same figure staring. Its eyes, presence, pursued me for weeks. It took days to return to daily life, but something inside remained uneasy, like the figure hadn't let go. Today, I don't work there. No one does. The building closed suddenly. No one knows why. Reports said structural failures, but structural failures never explained what happened that night. My name is Raul Mendoza, and I was a police officer for 15 years. I've seen things few would believe. Gruesome accidents, murders, inexplicable disappearances. But one case haunts me to this day. It happened 6 years ago on night patrol in a small town up north. Dawns were quiet, maybe a drunk, fighting in a bar, or noise complaint in the neighborhoods. But that night, something different. At 2:47 a.m., the radio crackled static before the operator's voice. Unit 047, disturbance report at kilometer 12 on the old highway. Witness reports, person walking in road middle. Proceed with caution. Strange, the old highway was practically abandoned, surrounded by hills, barely a couple scattered farms. No reason for anyone walking there at that hour. My partner Soto snorted. Turned on patrol lights. Probably a crazy or drunk. Took 15 minutes to arrive. Highway deserted. Moon dimly lit asphalt. Hills casting long shadows. Advanced, slow, high beams on. Then we saw it about 100 meters ahead. Figure moving slowly, road center. Thin man, dark clothes, long hair over face. Walked erratically, clumsy steps, like disoriented. Soto slowed, took radio base, visual contact with subject. Descending to investigate. Parked meters away, turned on flashers. Good evening. Stop there. I ordered exiting patrol. Man, no response. No flinched. Just kept walking like hadn't heard. Soto and I exchanged looks, something off. Lost, friend. Tried again, advancing steps. Hand on holster. Then man stopped, first time. Seemed he'd heard. Very slowly turned head our way. Chilled down, spine face, no expression. Sunken eyes, pale skin, lips parted. Worst, neck turned head. Way beyond human, dry bone crack and night froze blood. Soto drew weapon instinctively. Police halt. Man smiled, but lips not natural, forced. Unnatural, like face unused to gesture. Then ran at us. Never forget, foot sound dull, thuds. Fast, like sliding, more than walking. Weightless or shadow moving high speed. Soto fired first 2 shots blind. Maynor, whatever didn't stop. Bullets, hollow thud, impacting air, like body, invisible or ethereal. Don't hurt him, Soto. Shouted, though didn't know why, not what happening. Man closer, faster. Only he could back up, tripping on roadside dirt clumps. Didn't know, but stomach said, not human. Suddenly, man stopped meters away. Torso tilted unnaturally. A smile grew more like face-trapped, monstrous grimace, mask forced. His empty eyes looked, but didn't see no humanity, no soul. Soto backed, dropping weapon-like body, forgot hold. What the hell is that? Trembling, being stepped toward us. Suddenly, everything changed. Air dance, heavy, pressing. Deep guttural sound from creature not normal growl, like thousand voices overlapping through throat strange distorted echo. Then instant, time stopped. Moon, bright, until then, darkened completely darkness, devoured in blink. Couldn't see beyond meters only here. Deep breathing, chest rumbled like something crushing inside. Run now, shouted, grabbing Soto arm. No hesitate train to patrol, fear squeezing chest. But looking back, man no longer same spot vanished like never existed. But footsteps continued approaching. Air floated, cold, dense, fog. Then heard soft, twisted laugh. We'd gone 100 meters when something stopped us, road middle. Figure same man, or whatever, but now, different. Not just human, dark, distorted plot, constantly changing shape, like several human forms fusing one body. Legs couldn't move, trapped in horror. Then new, followed us, no escape. Soto, run, shouted. Soto tried move, but something stopped invisible. Air, atmosphere, retained. Like time stopped again. No escape, saw a man approach again, faster, terrifying. Each step, darkness thickened around, like shadow ally, dragging behind, devouring all. Soto couldn't move, face pale, mouth open, no sound. Eyes darted, seeking exit, pleading. Then, voice deep, like from bottomless well, clearly to me. You're going to be part of this now, raw. Froze voice, not from figure, from everywhere. Worst, knew my name. Instant, shadowed, jumped impossible. Not human. Displaced to such speed, barely reacted. Felt tug in chest, like grabbed insides. Dragged. Figure before me, empty eyes. Face deformed, unnatural grimace. But didn't attack, not yet. Instead, dense fog enveloped. Hard breathe. Air, thicker, heavier. Hard see beyond meters, but what saw enough for sanity, fading. Suddenly, Soto screamed, not fear, agony. Something happening. Turned fast, body convulsing, hands twisting, eyes bulging. Dragged by invisible, like darkness, taking him. Soto shouted, voice weak. Ran to him, no think but before reach. Invisible force stopped dead, pushing back hard. Falling ground, then saw a figure disappearing, not fade, not air melted into darkness, became part. Second, gone. Fog vanished fast as came. Soto gone, stood, trembling head to toe. Air dense again, no fog. Moonlight filtered, illuminating road, but terror present. Patrol, they're distant, but didn't dare approach. Didn't know what happened, Soto, or what occurring. Crawled to patrol, mind confused, heart racing. Before reach, last notification phone, missing person report. Soto, police number 08267, disappeared 3:07 a.m. kilometer 12 Old Highway. Case closed, notification deleted, fast as appeared. Phone shut off suddenly. Then new, not all around alive. Things beyond human reason, ancient, dark beings, feed on desperation, fear. Worst, as police, now marked by them. Still today, nights haunt me. Darkness, no mercy. If ever return that highway, no, won't be alone. My name is Luis Herrera, and I never imagined the vigils in the Mexican army would turn so strange. I remember my first guard duty at a remote base in the mountains, far from civilization, where silence was denser than noise. We stayed alert against any threat, nature or locals. But that night was different. The air felt charged, like everything waited. The moon hung low, pale light spilling over jagged peaks, casting long, twisted shadows that seemed to shift when I blinked. The wind carried a faint, metallic scent, as if the earth itself exhaled rust and regret. Patrol began normally, yet the atmosphere was heavy. We blamed isolation. Every clock check, time stalled. The vigil endless. My companion, Soldier Vega, was with me. He was tough, serious, distant. He spoke little, but that night, worry showed. His usual steady gait faltered slightly, boots scraping gravel with hesitation. I noticed his knuckles white on the rifle strap. Hera, noticed anything weird? He asked low, fearing ears. His breath fogged in the unnatural cold. Weird? I said. What? Vega stared. Eyes shone oddly, reflecting the vigil lamp like polished obsidian. Restless, alert. Something out there, he said, pointing to the forest. Pines loomed, needles, whispering secrets. Wind rose, air to cold. I ignored it. Vega had imagination, but silence deepened. My breathing echoed, amplified by the valley walls. The stars above seemed dimmer, as if veiled by an unseen shroud. Suddenly, distant footsteps, slow, dragging. Each thud resonated in my chest. Vega gripped rifle, signaled silence. Face paled. Steps neared. Field empty, lit by a faint lamp. But steps continued, deliberate, unhurried, as if savoring the approach. I neared fence, peered into shadows. Barbed wire glinted coldly. Steps stopped. Chill hit, crawling under my uniform. What was that? The air thickened, pressing lungs. Then Vega vanished. One moment beside me, the next gone. Heart pounded. I entered forest, following echo. Branches clawed at sleeves. Fog enveloped never before, sudden as a curtain drop. Flashlight lit inches, beams swallowed by gray. Crack behind. Spun nothing. Trees moved strangely, alive, trunks bending like limbs. Not alone. Goose flesh rose. Sweat turned icy. Footsteps returned fast. Adrenaline surged. Vega figure appeared. Breath stopped. Man-like, face shadowed, edges blurring, body disjointed, joints bending wrong. Breathing struggled, inhuman wet, rattling like drowning in tar. Chill. Who? Why here? Approached slowly. Discomfort studied me, head tilting at impossible angles. Rifle trembled. Couldn't shoot. Finger frozen on trigger. Stopped. Silence only breath. Heart thundering. Vanished into fog. No trace. Presence lingered. Heavy as guilt. Herrera. Weak voice. Vega silhouette emerged. Staggering. Walk clumsy. Feet dragging furrows in dirt. Approached slow. Face pale. Sweaty. Veins. Stark underskin. Unease grew. Not in gut. Vega. Wrong. I asked calm. Eyes. Empty. Distant. Didn't recognize. Pupils dilated. Swallowing color. Hera. Voice broken. Effort. Why no help? Confused. Help. Words scraped like gravel. Waited at post. Were you? Mind raced. Stopped. Gathered strength. Sweat trembling. Lips cracked. Bloodless. Forced stopped me. Confused. Saw things. Wouldn't let out. Voice cracked. Trailing into whisper. Chill. Tone real. Ear denser. Time stopped. What things? Fear rose. Violent throat. Closed eyes. Face contorting. Shadows among trees. Not human. Moving like they were. Far. Watching. Waiting. Quicken. Chest heaving. Silence. Unbearable. No paranoia, truth in voice. Raw terror. No lie in eyes. Trembling. Returned to base. Lurking sense. Path seemed longer. Trees closing in. Rest, Vega, I said. Took arm cold, clammy. Sound stopped us well. Whisper names. From everywhere, earth speaking, voices layered. Ancient dot, looked dash fog, dark. Well grew piercing. Eyes glowed beyond fog. Not human. Dark red, huge, pulsing like hearts. Vega saw. Wider, lips blue. Paralyzed, muscles locked. Figure moved. Fog thickened, absorbing light. Hard breathe. Lungs burning. Pressed all sides. Invisible weight. Wind gust. Eyes gone. Air cleared. Fear remained. Bone deep. Walked fast to base. Boots pounding. Dot entered. Met Sergeant Gomez. Confused. What happened? Told. Worry in eyes. Deeper than duty. Heard whisper inside. Echoed ears. Crawling skin. Vega heard too. Paler. Swaying Gomez noticed not. Sat bench. Wordless. Time stretched. Seconds. Hours. Air dense. Watched by Sergeant. Something else. Invisible. Whisper in head name. Fading. What followed? Echoed in skull. Vega fought inside. Breath fast. Gasping. Trapped in nightmare. Eyes darted. Unseen horrors. Sergeant. Here. Trembling. Looked. Doubt. Then. Nothing. Not convincing. Voice wavered. Couldn't stay. Something stalked. Base breathe. Waiting. Walls pulsing faintly. Leave. Evac. Panic. Gomez grave. Doubting. Face aged years. Vega stood. Sudden pale. Fixed. Unseen. Walked. Exit firm. Called no response. Body puppet like. Vega. Shouted. Oblivious. Wrong. Hollow shell. Whisper thundered. Shadow slid wall. No source. Took shopiments. Towering. Red eyes. Burning coals. Come back. Voice absorbed. Muffled. Gomez stepped. Horror. Vega exited. Figure vanished. Whisper called. Seductive. What's happening? Obvious fear. Ancient evil. No time breath caught. Paralyzed. Whisper stronger. World stopped. Air denser. More emerged. Tendrils from dark. Silence. Oppressive. Skin prickled. Hairs rising. Gomez. Paralyzed. Sweat beating. Vega. Gone. Mind saw fog. Absorb. Follow. Or too late. Heart screamed flee. Gomez. Come find him. Urgency. No logic. Eyes wild. Walked exit. Boots creaked. Whisper matched. Syncopated. Space. Stretched. Shadows lengthened. Devouring. Lost in known path buildings. Warped. End. Dark. Vega stood. Empty face. Mouth slack. What here? No response. Eyes vacant. Reflecting nothing. Shadow manifested closer. Black smoke. Writhing. Huge silhouette. Blood chilling. Cold. Radiating. No turning back. Gomez advanced. Held it here. Fate sealed. Shadow grew. Whisper roar. Shouldn't come. Words. Vibrated bones. Scream. No mouth. Ancient. Primordial. Wind. Dust storm. World ceased. Shadow touched. Disintegrated. Gomez faded. Edges dissolving. Shouted. Voice drowned. Pushed back. Fell. Darkness. Shadows. Vega screamed far. Agonized. Touched shoulder. Turned. Gomez. Caught. Empty eyes. Darkness inside. Swirling void. Go too late. Not his voice. Coral. Layered. Took arm. Swallowed. Abyss. Eyes open. Base. Destroyed. No others. Whisper stronger. My name. Endless. Understood. Not physical. Fed fears. Empty. Whisper. Never left. Elders true. Time. Space fold. Shadow waits. Invaders. My name is Luis Herrera, and I never imagined the vigils in the Mexican army would turn so strange. I remember my first guard duty at a remote base in the mountains, far from civilization, where silence was denser than noise. We stayed alert against any threat, nature or locals. But that night was different. The air felt charged, like everything waited. The moon hung low, pale light spilling over jagged peaks, casting long, twisted shadows that seemed to shift when I blinked. The wind carried a faint, metallic scent, as if the earth itself exhaled rust and regret. Patrol began normally, yet the atmosphere was heavy. We blamed isolation. Every clock check, time stalled. The vigil endless. My companion, Soldier Vega, was with me. He was tough, serious, distant. He spoke little, but that night, worry showed. His usual steady gait faltered slightly, boots scraping gravel with hesitation. I noticed his knuckles white on the rifle strap. Hera, noticed anything weird? He asked low, fearing ears. His breath fogged in the unnatural cold. Weird? I said. What? Vega stared. Eyes shone oddly, reflecting the vigil lamp like polished obsidian. Restless, alert. Something out there, he said, pointing to the forest. Pines loomed, needles, whispering secrets. Wind rose, air to cold. I ignored it. Vega had imagination, but silence deepened. My breathing echoed, amplified by the valley walls. The stars above seemed dimmer, as if veiled by an unseen shroud. Suddenly, distant footsteps, slow, dragging. Each thud resonated in my chest. Vega gripped rifle, signaled silence. Face paled. Steps neared. Field empty, lit by a faint lamp. But steps continued, deliberate, unhurried, as if savoring the approach. I neared fence, peered into shadows. Barbed wire glinted coldly. Steps stopped. Chill hit, crawling under my uniform. What was that? The air thickened, pressing lungs. Then Vega vanished. One moment beside me, the next gone. Heart pounded. I entered forest, following echo. Branches clouded sleeves. Fog enveloped never before, sudden as a curtain drop. Flashlight lit inches, beams swallowed by gray. Crack behind. Spun nothing. Trees moved strangely, alive, trunks bending like limbs. Not alone. Goose flesh rose. Sweat turned icy. Footsteps returned fast. Adrenaline surged. Vega figure appeared. Breath stopped. Man-like, face shadowed, edges blurring, body disjointed, joints bending wrong. Breathing struggled, inhuman wet, rattling like drowning in tar. Chill. Who? Why here? Approached slowly. Discomfort studied me, head tilting at impossible angles. Rifle trembled. Couldn't shoot. Finger frozen on trigger. Stopped. Silence only breath. Heart thundering. Vanished into fog. No trace. Presence lingered. Heavy as guilt. Herrera. Weak voice. Vega silhouette emerged. Staggering. Walked clumsy. Feet dragging furrows in dirt. Approached slow. Face pale. Sweaty. Veins. Stark underskin. Unease grew. Not in gut. Vega. Wrong. I asked calm. Eyes empty. Distant. Didn't recognize. Pupils dilated. Swallowing 625 color. Hera. Voice broken. Effort. Why no help? Confused. Help. Words scraped like gravel. Waited at post. Were you? Mind raced. Stopped. Gathered strength. Sweat trembling. Lips cracked. Bloodless.